Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a pretty exciting video and I'm going to be telling you about all my most anticipated book releases of 2018. So I've seen quite a few different booktubers doing this kind of video and I just think they're so fun. They're such a brilliant way to kind of get excited about new books that are coming out and get some good recommendations as well. I do also like to keep up to date with different publishers and what they're bringing out in the year, so I've kind of looked at that, and I've also just looked at various different lists that different websites have compiled about what's coming out in 2018. And so I thought I'd just pick my absolute favourites off the lists, the ones I'm most excited for, and tell you all about them here. So there's quite a range of books that I'm excited for. There's some fiction, a random thriller, some poetry, some non-fiction, and so let's just get into the books. Why don't we start with the fiction? So the first one is one I'm extremely excited about, and it is The Immortalists by Chloe Benjamin, and this is due to be published in March by Tinder Press. So this novel is set in New York City in the 1960s and follows four adolescent siblings who go to visit a travelling psychic woman who's new to the city and get their fortunes told. And here I believe they're all told the date of their deaths. This of course determines the way that they live their lives, and I believe we get to see all of the different characters live their lives in various ways over a span of 5 decades. This novel just sounds absolutely fascinating to me. The premise sounds so intriguing, and I really like novels that look into lots of different characters and the way they live their lives and form relationships, and so I believe we're going to get quite a lot of that from this novel. It also just sounds quite atmospheric, and I'm hoping it's going to be beautifully written but also quite insightful at the same time, and I've heard quite a lot of good reviews about this one so far as well, so this is definitely one that's top of my list. The next novel is Girls Burn Brighter by Shobha Rao, and this is set to be published in March by Flatiron Books. So this novel, I believe, is set both in India and America and follows friendship between two girls, Purnima and Savitha, who are driven apart but continue to look for each other. I believe this novel explores themes such as poverty, domestic abuse and immigration, but also hope and beauty, and I'm sure this is going to be a really hard-hitting story and really emotional, but I'm here for all that. Also, I'm making a conscious effort this year to read more books with more diverse characters, and obviously this book includes characters who are very different in many ways from myself, and so this is one that I'm really excited for. Next is The Friendly Ones by Philip Hensher, that is also set to be published in March by Fourth Estate. This is one that was discussed and recommended by Eric Carl Anderson over on his YouTube channel, and it immediately struck me as something I'd love to read. So this novel, I believe, tells the story of two families who live next door to each other but have very different histories. One of the families is very large and has gradually come across to the UK from the subcontinent due to the economic and educational prospects that the UK holds, but also because some of them have been forced to flee their home countries due to war and oppression. And then their neighbours, the people who they live next to, are very typically English, and I think the biggest problem that they're facing at the time of the book is that their 18-year-old son is running away from Oxford. So this novel is meant to span decades and a whole cast of characters, which kind of gives me White Teeth by Zadie Smith vibes, which I absolutely loved, and I think it's going to discuss themes such as identity and history, which all sound so interesting and incredibly timely, and so I absolutely cannot wait to get to this one. Next, I really want to read The Lost Girls of Camp Forevermore by Kim Fu, and this is set to be published in February by Houghton Mifflin. This novel follows a group of girls who go to a sleepaway camp in the Pacific Northwest where they do all the traditional things like have swimming lessons and have campfires, and then one night they go on a kayaking trip to a nearby island for the night where they become stranded and they're completely on their own. This novel just sounds so exciting and fun. I really hope we get an insight into the 5 girls and their friendships, and it just sounds adorable. I've also heard really great things about Kim Fu's writing, and so hopefully this is going to be a great one. Next is the random thriller that I referenced earlier, and that is Lullaby by Layla Slimani, and this was published already, I think, in January by Faber and Faber. So this is a psychological thriller that tells the story of a couple who hire a babysitter to look after their 2 children, and one night when they get back after having an evening out together, they find their baby dead at the hands of the nanny. I hear that this novel is not only a really gripping psychological thriller, because that isn't really a kind of genre that I tend to read much of, but it's also meant to be really insightful into issues such as immigration and class difference, and that just sounds so interesting and unique as a premise, and I'm just completely drawn in by it. So this is also one that's really top priority for me. I want to read it so much, but like I said, because it's only just come out, it is so expensive at the moment. I saw it in Waterstones and I believe it was like one of those beautiful paperbacks that have French flaps, and because of that it costs like £13, which is just really frustrating, but hopefully I'll be able to get my hands on it soon. Next, I have two YA releases that I'm really excited about and I'm going to tell you about, and the first one is A Girl Like That by Tenez Bathina, and this is due to be published in March by Farah, Straus and Giroux. So this novel tells the story of protagonist Zarin, who is just a normal teenage girl at high school, but then somehow the story ends up with Zarin and her friend Porus being found dead on the side of a road in Saudi Arabia. So this novel just pieces together Zarin's story and tackles issues such as race and class and religion, and I think it's just going to be such an important and insightful read. Next is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, and this is due to be published in March by Harper Teen. This novel tells the story of a young Harlem girl who discovers slam poetry, and she uses this as a way to express her passions and frustrations and her anger and also her faith. I don't really know much more about this novel than that, but it just sounds so interesting to me. I'm really intrigued by the idea of slam poetry. I've never read anything about slam poetry before, and I've heard really amazing reviews about this one. I'm also wanting to read more YA that deals with really kind of timely topics and has more diverse characters in them, ever since I read The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas last year and absolutely loved it. So that's also kind of what inspired me wanting to try this one and the one I just talked about as well. Next, I have two non-fiction books to tell you about, and the first one is Feel Free by Zadie Smith, and this is due to be published next month in February by Hamish Hamilton. So this is a new collection of essays by Zadie Smith that I believe covers a range of topics, from libraries to social media, from politics to global warming, and I think it's just going to be really insightful and completely relevant to the world today. I absolutely loved White Teeth by Zadie Smith when I read it last year, and I found her writing to be so intelligent and just generally wonderful, so as soon as I heard that she was bringing out a new collection of essays, I just knew I'd have to read it. Next is Not That Bad, Dispatches from Rape Culture by Roxane Gay, and this is due to be published in May by Harper. So this is an anthology of first-person essays that is edited by Roxane Gay, and she also writes a foreword in the beginning of the collection as well, and it discusses topics such as rape and assault and violence and harassment, and I think it discusses them in a really kind of broad way and encompasses lots of different things, so from child molestation to the rape epidemic that is embedded in the refugee crisis. These are all topics that should really be discussed more, and I'm really interested in learning more about them, and I think it's going to be probably a very hard-hitting and upsetting read, but completely worthwhile. Finally, I have a poetry book to tell you about, and that is Don't Call Us Dead by Danez Smith, and this is being published in January by Chatto & Windus. This poetry collection is an exploration of what it is to be black in America today, and I believe it discusses issues such as police brutality and also HIV, among many other things. Simon from Savage Reads actually read this recently and really loved it, so that got me so excited to read it because I really trust his recommendations, and it just sounds so interesting. The topics sound like things I can certainly learn more about, and I think it's going to be really valuable. I really hope to read it soon. I mean, it does come out pretty soon, or it may already have come out by the time I put this video up, but it depends how much it's going for at the time and whether I can afford it, but hopefully I'll be able to get to it in the not too distant future. So those are the books that are coming out in 2018 that I've seen around and I'm really excited for. I'd love to know what you're most excited for that's coming out in 2018. Please let me know down below because I may have missed them. I think that 2018 is going to be a really brilliant year in terms of publication, and publishing houses bringing out books that are more diverse in terms of their authors and their characters, and also books that are just talking about really important and relevant topics. So that's all for today, and I'll see you next week with my next video. Bye!